Although Steve White Trickboy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, we've finally got some news about the fourth J.J. Abrams film, or Star Trek 4 as they're calling it. I mean, it's not actually Star Trek 4. Now, when I first saw these articles, I thought they were referring to... I thought these were the same articles that have been floating around for the last couple of years, referring to the last couple of attempts to get Star Trek 4 happening. Now, when they released Star Trek Beyond, they announced they were already green-lighting Star Trek 4, which was going to be a story about Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, Daddy Kirk and Baby Kirk, basically. And it never happened. Now, for a while, they had the director S.J. Clarkson, who's a female director. They had her contracted to direct the film, and it looked like it was going to happen for a minute, but they lost their funding because they couldn't negotiate a contract with the two actors who they were trying to make them take a smaller paycheck than what was already negotiated. So they both walked. It didn't happen because the investors went when the actors went. They had another director who was brought in. I've forgotten his name, and unfortunately, he apparently had a good story, but he wanted to use a different cast. He wanted to have a new crew. He didn't want to use the Enterprise or the JJ reboot crew, so that didn't happen. Basically, he wanted to do something too far away from what they've already established in our film, so that didn't happen. Now we get to this announcement. Now, as I said, it was at the CBS investor presentation, or Paramount presentation. J.J. Abrams came up and he said, "We are thrilled to say that we are hard at work on a new Star Trek film that we'll be shooting at the end of the year, and we'll be featuring our original cast." When I take that a little bit offensively, because that's not the original cast. This is the JJ films, the reboot films. The original cast was William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelley, Nichelle Nichols, Walter Koenig, James Doohan, George Takei. They were the original cast, not the cast of the JJ films, but okay, whatever. And some new characters that I think are going to be very, very fun and exciting and help take Star Trek into areas that you've just never seen before. Perhaps they could take it into an area that's actually recognisable Star Trek in one of the reboot films. We're thrilled about the film. We have a bunch of stories that we're talking about and that we think were really exciting, so we can't wait for you to see what we're cooking up. But until then, live long and prosper. Now, why are they using the new cast? They basically did some market research. So insiders say that the studio has done market research to determine audience interest in the rebooted cast, given the long wait period between Beyond, and which lost money for Paramount, and the prospective new Star Trek film. It's been about 6 years. Executives determined that there was still lasting audience enthusiasm for Pine, Quinto and the rest of the cast in the established roles, which allowed the studio to feel comfortable with moving forward with bringing them back. Now, as far as I hear, they've only been in talks with Chris Pine, but they want to get the rest of the cast involved. So, I mean, what are my feelings about this? It's slated for release December 2023. It was June or July, I think, and then it was moved recently. They're going to start filming at the end of the year. I don't know, the JJ films were big action films. They weren't science fiction films. They weren't really Star Trek films. They had a spectacle, first two at least, and they worked on one level, but they really didn't work as Star Trek films. I liked the first film because it was really just an origins film, and it was just about setting up the universe and drawing people in, so I didn't mind how far they strayed from Star Trek. But then at the end of the film, they promised to boldly go and to have a Star Trek story. And when we first saw previews for Into Darkness, they showed the only section of the film that resembled a Star Trek film, which was this first little adventure before they actually get into the main story. And they showed that at IMAX, and people watched that, and we thought that was what the rest of the film was going to be like. And instead we got another film based around Earth, not exploration, not on another planet, and it was just a terrorist plot with a certain villain who JJ asked me and the first audience to see it in Australia to actually keep his secret for him, which we did, which I kind of wish I wasn't a part of. But I was literally in the front row. He was talking to me and everyone else, and he asked us not to, obviously not to tell anyone, not to let it out yet, because we were the first audience to see it. I was at the premiere, and it really wasn't much of a Star Trek film. And then at the end of that film, they promised to boldly go in the next film. Now, in the next film, they did attempt to keep it away from Earth and be in space, but the film started off with the most insulting captain's log, where Kirk was basically saying, space exploration is boring, I don't know what I'm doing here. And the message of the film seemed to be, unless we're at war and, endanger our lives, we're really not alive and there's really no point. And it was just a really nihilistic sort of view of Star Trek and space exploration. And they destroyed the Enterprise in the first part of the film, and basically the rest of the film they're stuck on a planet. There were some good character moments, and some elements of the story did work very much like a Star Trek story, but other parts just were really wrong, and it didn't really work. It didn't inspire people, didn't catch on, didn't have good word of mouth, didn't make a lot of money. It made a bit of money, but not enough to profit because of how much it cost. So it was kind of considered a bit of a disaster, and there was talk they wouldn't do another film. And then after that, Anton Yelchin died, so it seemed to me fitting to just say, okay, we did a trilogy and leave it at that. And I was hoping that if they were going to do another Star Trek film, that they would get a new cast, a new crew, new director, just get new people in and do something new and interesting. Instead, we're just going to get more of the JJ verse, which is very divisive. Like I said, it's mostly action orientated, no science fiction, very little Star Trek. The only good thing about the movies really was the cast, because aside from Simon Pegg turning Scotty into a joke, the rest of them, and that was really, determined by the script. It wasn't really his choice. The rest of the cast did a really good job. And I must admit, I saw the films like 20 times each because I just was so desperate for Star Trek. And I enjoyed the films cinematically, but when you actually look at them, you can't examine them. They fall apart so badly. I haven't been able to watch them for like 4 or 5 years. I think I watched them when Beyond came out on DVD. Had a little marathon. I watched the 3 films on Blu-ray, and that was the last time I watched them. So that was about 5 years ago. So I don't know what to make of this. We didn't think it was going to happen. A lot of fans didn't think JJ was going to be doing another film because really we wanted him gone. We wanted new people in. And there was talk that when CBS and Paramount merged, that Paramount was going to get the rights back and they were going to go forward with the films without JJ's involvement. But unfortunately, he's got his talons in too deep, and Secret Hideout as well, and he's involved in that, and they're all working together, and there's no way to get them out of Star Trek. They are so ingrained with the contracts that they can't, even if they wanted to, because they did want to get rid of them at first and just start from scratch, but they have to work from what they've got, and it's not good overall. So I'm not very optimistic. I'm surprised on one level this is happening, but not on another. I think they're actually starting to call CBS, I think they're actually starting to just call the whole group Paramount now, because of brand recognition and everything, but I didn't have time to research that. I saw a little story on that and I didn't have time to read it. But I'm not sure if that's what this is about, and if where the funding's coming, where the money is coming from, who is actually paying for this, who actually thinks they're going to get money back, they're going to profit, since the last film didn't profit and it's been 6 years. They've lost all momentum. They may still have people remembering that cast fondly, but they've got no momentum from the other films. And they didn't even have much momentum with the films they released because they left too long between the releases. So I think it was like 4 years between each release. Yeah, 2009, 2013 and 2016, I think. So almost 4 years between each one. So yeah, it'd be nice to see the cast come back, but I really wish they'd just left it at a trilogy and did something new. So I'm not sure they're just going to do a random film. Is it going to be totally separate? Are they going to have that ugly Enterprise they featured at the end of the last film, where each film has been so destroyed they had to basically rebuild it at the end of each film? The last one they really did destroy it, so this is a new one, and it looks, the angles are just awful. It's like each time they redid it, they had to change it so it'd be different, so someone else would get their licensing, and each time they just strayed further and further from the first design that worked and the original design which worked. So there's just so many, the more I think about it, the more concerns there are, more issues there are, and the chances of this being good, I'm not feeling optimistic at all. I wish they'd just gone with something new. whether it was rebooting the original cast again or just getting another crew of a starship and just doing it new without any of the drama, any of the canon issues, any of the continuity issues and so forth. And then, I mean, this film exists in a separate universe, separate timeline, in a separate universe from the original universe. Star Trek is a multiverse like every other franchise, but they don't acknowledge it because they think that the original fans won't watch it if they know it's a different universe. But we've all worked that out, we've seen it, and the ones that are here are still here. They're not going anywhere, so they may as well just acknowledge it and work with it. But I don't know, I've got nothing else more to say about it. I just sort of had to talk about it for a minute. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Feel free to ding the bell as well. Yep. I'm going to go. Thanks. Bye.